Hey, this is Brendan Allen from ComicCon.com, sitting here with Cullen Bunn and Ariel Dyer. Anton is unable to be with us today because he's not feeling well. It is not COVID, but we're wishing him the best of recoveries here. Today, we're going to be talking about vampires just in pop culture, in comics and movies, and of course, some vampire themed drinks that we've come up with here. So, Cullen Bunn, Ariel Dyer is one half of the Not Your Final Girl podcast. We're happy to have her here today. How you doing, Ariel?
I'm good. I'm excited. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Right on, right on. Do you want to get us started with one of your drinks?
Sure. Yeah, I will start. So I was excited to talk about vampires, but I was kind of um, apprehensive because I don't really love grenadine and I don't like tomato juice. So I had to get creative. So this is, I call it 30 Days of Night, and it's kind of my twist on the Blizzard drink. So it has 2.5 ounces of bourbon. It has fresh squeezed lemon juice, a half ounce maple syrup, 1 tablespoon, and then 1.5 ounces of like unsweetened cranberry juice. It's
Not a
really
fan of
good.
grenadine.
No,
Anton and Cullen are like they'll pour like half a cup of grenadine and then just put like a shot of vodka on top of
That
it.
is not true. That is not true.
it's horrible. That's
I
a
do like
sin.
grenadine just fine, but I don't just drink straight grenadine.
Well, that's good to know. That's comforting. Thank you. I guess I can still be on this with you.
Yes.
No, this is good. This is kind of sweet. I kind of like I don't know. I'm not huge into sweet cocktails, but this kind of tastes like a Jolly Rancher a little bit, and it's kind of nice.
Oh,
Hmm.
fair, fair.
I love doing like a
And
maple syrup instead of a simple syrup. So,
I've never tried that.
oh, you should. It's a
I
game changer.
I have a
Shocking
bunch of
that
little
I only
a bunch of
tried it
little
the first time in the
a bunch
recent
of
weeks.
bunch of bunch of
Stop.
I have a bunch of little like souvenir bottles of maple syrup in the house. Maybe it's time to bring them into the bar and use them instead of the simple syrup. See how that works out.
Souvenir, meaning you stole them the last 20 times you've been to IHOP.
Yes,
There.
100%. The IHOPs here don't have it though. You got to go to the
Oh,
fancy IHOP in like
oh,
San
well.
Francisco.
Yeah, I've never
They
seen
don't
that.
have it at the International House of Pancakes.
Dude, everything in Bakersfield,
Not in Bakersfield.
Oh,
yeah, it's a little different out here. It's
Yeah.
cool. So that's based off of, I mean, the name obviously comes from the graphic novel and the movie 30 Days a Night. Have you read the graphic novel?
I haven't. I've seen the movie, but I need to read the graphic novel. I'm with some comic nerds here, so I should. But I haven't. Mm-mm.
You have to get the original because they took another run at it a few years ago with a different
Okay.
artist, and
Yeah.
it doesn't hit the same. For some reason, it's the exact same script and the exact same like directions and things, but
Yeah.
the new art is just not there for me.
I've seen some of the art for the original, and I can understand. Like it's iconic, you know. So I don't know. You can't really top it,
It's like doing a shot for shot remake with
which
new
they do
actors or
many
something like
times.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Foreign
it's
film,
no
bring
good.
it to the mainstream. Yeah. Hmm.
Nice, cool. So we're jokingly calling this episode the cursed episode because Anton got sick. We had some issues with scheduling. My house flooded. This is a different wall than I usually record these on because over there, there's a couple inches of water. So, um,
That's dedication right there. So
right. So I don't have running water in the house. So I had a couple of drinks lined up. One of them was red in color and it had the dry ice in it. It was a very cool looking thing called a vampire's kiss. Maybe I'll make that for next time. But I do have a recipe from Hoff and Pepper is a hot sauce company that they have a hot sauce called Wake Up Call, and on the label is a Bloody Mary recipe. And I've always you said you don't like you don't like grenadine, you don't like tomato juice. I've never
mhm.
liked Bloody Marys
Yeah.
because they taste like cold tomato soup to me,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
I'm not a fan. But this one, I had to think of it a little differently and sit there and go, it's not a tomato soup based cocktail. It's a hot sauce based cocktail, and that made me like it a lot.
Okay.
So this one's got tomato juice, lime juice, lemon juice, Worcester, olive brine. It's got the hot sauce in it, horseradish, pepper, salt, and vodka.
Hmm.
I don't have it made in front of me right now, and it's a recipe for an entire pitcher. So I got good and loaded like the day before my house flooded. Uh, because you're not gonna like stick it in the fridge for later. That's not yeah right. Yeah. So that was going to be my those were going to be my two contributions, but we're going to throw up the recipe for Hoff and Pepper, um, and yeah, that's what I have. I'm just drinking my Scotch neat here today.
that sounds pretty good, actually. I mean, I wasn't a big Bloody Mary person either for a long time. I've come to appreciate them a lot more in my old age. One of the last ones I got though, I was at a bar and the manager comes by and he says, "Hey, I'm working on a new Bloody Mary recipe. Do you want to try it?" So I was like, "Sure, why not?" And he comes over with what must have been the size of the pitcher you made, and it had like a steak driven down into it, and it had pickles and olives and everything, but it also had a Scotch egg. It had a slider, like a hamburger slider. It was basic, and
it's a meal.
Yeah, it had like a Reuben roll. It was it was just all like jammed in there. It had to
That's
be
like Vegas style. There's a couple places in Vegas that have like a whole fried chicken on top of this thing. And it's like, do you take the chicken off and then drink, or you eat it while it's on the thing?
That's like the pizza trend. Like people put everything on pizza. It's like, a whole hamburger, a whole family of hamburgers on my pizza, like a whole, so it seems similar to me.
If they stirred it with like a fried chicken leg and like left the chicken leg in there, I could see that, but a whole fried chicken on top.
A wet chicken leg. Yeah, tell me more about a soaking chicken leg. Awful.
Right on. Okay, so Cullen, you had 3 drinks today, so you picked up some of my slack. Let's go with one of yours.
Yeah, well, first of all, let me vent just a little bit about Anton here. He's sick on the vampire episode. That's what people that get infected with vampirism say. Oh, I'm sick. And I'm full on expecting that sometime tonight, I'm going to hear a tap, tap, tap on my window. And there's going to be Anton floating outside. Let me in.
Wait, didn't you accuse him of being, a werewolf on one of these?
I accuse Anton of all forms of monstrosity. He is all horrible things. That said,
just don't let him in. Just don't let him in. It's easy with vampires.
So, you can't. The guy's too nice. You just gotta let him in. He seems so pleasant. So, my first drink is a tribute to one of my favorite vampire movies. Maybe my favorite vampire movie. I'm not willing to completely put a stake in the ground for that one. So I call this the Near Dark. You like that glass, Brendan?
Yeah, I do. I have some like that. Mine say Allen on them.
Oh, that's right. Anyway, it's white rum and dark rum, and a little bit of peach schnapps, a little bit of black cherry juice. I tried it with just like cherry juice, and something was off. But like a black cherry juice, a little bit of grenadine, yes, 2 teaspoons. Brendan's favorite, some Luxardo cherry syrup on the top. And guess what's in there? There's that Luxardo cherry for you.
No, so those are the swamp cherries.
Swamp cherry.
That's one of my favorites too, by the way, Near Dark.
Yes, and then topped with black cherry soda.
Ooh.
And it's really good. It was, like I said, the first time I made it was way too sweet, which I should have expected with the black cherry soda. But
well, rum is really sweet too. That's a really tropical.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's pretty refreshing. And yeah, it's Near Dark. You guys love that movie, right?
Iconic.
Brendan, you love that Near Dark, right?
Meh. It's all right.
It's like one of my top 5. So
it is.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I kid.
Whatever. You're just trying to save face.
Well, okay. So what is your all-time favorite? If that's in the top 5, what's your all-time favorite vampire movie then?
Who are you asking?
Who's going to answer?
Either of us. I think Colin and I are both ready to go. We're ready to jump into the fray. Every day it changes because there's more than 5 incredibly perfect A+ 100% vampire movies. You can't pick. I like Ganja and Hess a lot. That's up there for me. I like the weird shit.
Oh, that's weird.
So Ganja and Hess, you seen that one?
Yeah, I couldn't get through it. But
oh wow, okay. I like.
Is it streaming?
Canopy. You got Canopy?
I don't have Canopy.
Well, you could if you get a card from the LA Public Library. Anyways,
Oh, that's right. You guys didn't. I didn't tell you this part either. The way that I met Ariel is she played for a benefit concert for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation for my son. And she is the punk rock librarian here in Kern County. And so anything to do with music and horror films and library stuff, that's your resource right there.
That's it. Yeah, so that's a good one. I like Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. It's another top one. Near Dark, as you said. Thirst, real weird, real good. That Korean one.
Yeah.
I really like. What about Dracula's Daughter? Either of you fans of that one?
Are
we talking about the old Hammer movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've told the story of sneaking in and watching a movie from behind the couch when my older brother and sister were watching a Hammer movie, and I'm certain it was Dracula. In my mind, in the years that have passed, I think it was Dracula's Daughter.
Oh my! So that's such a on the Not Your Final Girl podcast, we always ask people like their first horror memories, and so many times it's someone hiding behind the couch while like an older sibling or their parents are watching something.
No, we talked about this. We talked about this on the last podcast. My dad just didn't care at all. So I was watching Friday the 13th on Laserdisc. I was watching Chud. I was watching all kinds of stuff when I was like 6.
Yeah,
love that for you.
I vividly remember crawling across the floor to hide behind the couch while they were watching TV. So,
and you think it was Dracula's Daughter? What did you think of it? Because it's really a slow movie. Like, I wonder what a kid would think of that one.
What did your 6-year-old self think?
Yeah,
I know it was a Hammer movie, and in the years that have passed, I keep coming back to thinking it was Dracula's Daughter.
Okay,
I remember loving whatever I was watching. It was.
You're like, this is what I need to do with the rest of my life. Yeah. Right here. This is it.
Those were formative years.
Yeah.
And it may not have been. It was. I promise it was a Hammer movie, but it may not have been Dracula's Daughter. But for some reason, I know it was a vampire movie. I know that it had bright red blood, and that's
maybe it was like Curse of Frankenstein, not Curse of Frankenstein. Like one of the Peter.
See, I feel
Christopher Lee Draculas.
I feel like I would have remembered Christopher Lee, and I don't remember Christopher Lee being in that movie. But I think who knows?
Dracula's Daughter is like black and white. I think that's actually Universal.
Oh, well, then it couldn't have been Dracula's Daughter.
Yeah,
because you remember the bright red splashes.
Yeah, it had the Hammer bright red.
Huh? I'm curious.
So, I don't know. It was a vampire movie.
Yeah, we'll never know.
Stupid vampires. Just so we're clear though, Near Dark's up there at the top. But Fright Night is also the original Fright Night's up there pretty close at the top. I like Lost Boys.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Of course.
And now
just the soundtrack of Lost Boys is
the Lost Boys soundtrack's pretty awesome.
The sax man, the shirtless sax man is still touring off of his fame from the original Lost Boys.
Sure is. And you know what?
You can catch a concert at like Canocta and stuff with that dude.
Wow.
And that dude is still ripped.
Is he?
I mean, he's like
60 now too.
Mid-60s. Yeah. He's still in pretty great shape. Because there's a band called Gunship. I don't know if you're familiar with Gunship or not.
Mm-mm.
But they did a song called Dark All Day. Even if you don't like the music of Gunship, which I do, I'm a big fan. It's sort of that 80s synth, that 80s synth wave resurgence. They did a video called Dark All Day, and it's mostly animated. It's sort of an anime style, and it's about a group of vampire hunters, and we're talking it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Blade, the Frog Brothers, the brothers from Dusk Till Dawn, and they're all fighting vampires throughout this video. And they cut occasionally to the sax. I wish I could think of his name right now. I usually can name it, but
hang on, I got it.
They cut away to him, an animated version of him playing a saxophone, and then they cut to him live, and he's playing the saxophone. But the video's an amazing feat. It's an amazing spectacle for vampire fans because it's just all these vampire hunters out there killing vampires.
The Lost Boys' sexy sax man, his name is Tim Capello.
There he is, Tim Capello.
All right. Shout out to Tim.
And he is ripped. He's in his 60s and he is crazy ripped.
Yeah. Well, watch this video. Watch Gunship's Dark All Day. You will not regret a single second of watching it if you like vampires in the least.
Awesome.
Nice. I have a Frog Boys story to tell you off camera because it's not appropriate for this show.
What?
Wow, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
We have to do the Comics and Cocktail After Dark.
Yes, yes.
Put a NSFW warning on it. Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Yeah, The Lost Boys, I think, was one of the first ones that I really like sat down and like, because a bunch of the vampire films, they definitely have they have the tropes that they follow and things like that. And I liked as a teenager when I saw that one, how much it broke it up and kind of brought it like modern with the music and the way that they were dressing and talking and things like that. Because a lot of the stuff was more like, Interview with the Vampire, the old timey speech and period clothes and things like that. So it was kind of cool how and I liked Dracula 2000, and I don't know. It's not because of the actors or anything like that. I just thought it was really cool how they used the character of Judas to explain all the religious iconography and the aversion to silver and all that stuff. I thought it was a really cool thing. And then
Oh, that is cool.
Donny Cates in Redneck did the same thing with Nicodemus of the Sanhedrin as one of the original vampires, and I thought that was a really cool just kind of take on vampire lore and explaining why religious iconography and silver and all the different things were so reviled by vampires.
Can't they just be evil? They're just evil.
They could.
They're just
They
evil.
could. It's true,
Sometimes
but why?
they're
Why?
just
If you're just
evil.
evil, why would you care about a cross, though? Why would you care? If you're just evil, why would you care? It's
Well,
just two
sometimes
sticks.
sometimes they don't. I just watched Martin for the first time a month
Martin
ago.
is awesome, and he didn't care.
That's another top one for me. Yeah, he didn't care. He literally like takes a bite out of garlic because his cousin's like trying to protect himself. He's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't work on me. So
Nice.
I like that the lore changes subtly or extremely like between different movies.
For sure.
Yeah.
The Salem's Lot miniseries, it's not a movie, but hands
Very
down,
good.
it is one of the, I already made reference to Anton tapping on the glass, which scared it scared me so bad when I watched it when it aired the first time. My parents were like, oh, it's on TV. Let's watch this vampire thing. And it terrified me. And
it's scary.
Yeah. And that scene where Ben is taping the cross together, taping the depressors together to make a crucifix, and the vampire's rising up behind him on the gurney there, is one of my favorite scenes on all of television.
What's the Gary Oldman Dracula movie? Is it just called Dracula? Bram Stoker's
Dracula,
which I think is
great.
It's
I
beautiful.
really liked. You were talking about the rising up. I really liked the effects they did on that one.
Yeah.
How physics were completely backward when he was around and stuff like that. Like the water dripping up and the shadows in the wrong places and stuff was a really cool, just creepy effect, because a lot of that stuff you don't even register consciously, but your brain knows what it's supposed to be seeing, and when you don't see it and things are going completely backwards of what they're supposed to go, it sets you on edge whether you realize why or not.
I don't know. I don't know what my full top 5 is, but I like the Bram Stoker's Dracula quite a bit. I think it's great.
Yeah, that's like a high goth one.
Yeah.
It's a
I'm wearing a Bram
polarizing
Stoker
one.
shirt.
Ooh. A lot of people hate that movie. I think it's great. I think it's very fun. It's campy. I think a lot of people maybe just don't like the camp, but it's a good one.
Yeah, some of the horror film genres lend themselves better to camp than others. Like, you can't take it too seriously and pull too hard at the thread sometimes, because the whole thing will come apart. So I don't know. The camp is kind of, I don't know, inherent to the genre.
Movie. Yeah.
Cullen's got the most drinks, so let's go with the second one.
Okay, so my second one, I've called it. This is one I threw it together at the last minute. I call it.
Is that the one with the cookies on top?
No, that's my final drink. Thank you.
Oh, never mind. Oh, sorry. That's the coup de grace.
Carefully crafted.
I called this one the Vampire's Lament, and it looks a lot better when you like make it and serve it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's 1 part vodka, 1 part silver tequila, 3 parts lime juice, 3 parts, and then you mix all that and put it in there with club soda and stir it again, and then a little bit of grenadine, and you garnish it with a cherry and Brendan's favorite, a dehydrated blood orange slice.
I'm still waiting for those glasses and those dehydrated fruits you promised. Like, what was that, 6 months ago?
Don't hold me to anything. I have people waiting on lots of stuff. When I first make it, it looks really cool because the grenadine all sinks to the bottom, and it's the red kind of bleeds up through the top, and it's like it almost looks like sunrise, is what I was thinking. And it's a hard drink. It's actually it is not as bad as my face.
Okay, great.
But you're never. I never expect how tart it is. It's very tart.
Mm.
It's sort of like a really sharp gimlet. Like it's a. The good news is very low cal, but my as I sat here, my dehydrated orange drank up the
Oh,
alcohol like a vampire drinking blood and has become my dehydrated orange wedge.
So all that dehydrated fruit you do, if you did like a trash can punch
It
and you
would
stuck
all
those dehydrated citruses in there, right? You
yeah
just go around eating the fruit for the rest of the party and be blasted.
yeah. That's what I do every day.
that's the
That's,
secret.
I wake up and I eat some liquor soaked dehydrated oranges.
People just think you're being healthy or something, eating a bunch
Yeah.
of fruit, but nah, that's Cullen
Everywhere
getting
I look,
loaded.
it's like you know how Jerry Dandridge eats that apple. He's always eating an apple in Fright Night. That's me. I'm always eating one of these booze soaked oranges.
Nice. Up to No Ghoul is coming out soon, right? The sequel to Ghoul Next Door.
It is. I don't know the exact date, but we just put the cover out like in the last week or so. The cover got released for us, and you know what? It's a perfect story to talk about with vampires because Up to No Ghoul is a huge vampire story. If you've read The Ghoul Next Door, it's about this boy, and he meets a ghoul who's about his age, and they become friends. This sort of weird oddball friendship, and they explore the world of ghouls together. In Up to No Ghoul, they are still friends, but a bloodmobile rolls into town, and as soon as that happens, weird things start to happen in the world of humans and in the world of ghouls. And it's a big for a kid's book. It's a big ode to vampire stories, invasion of the body snatchers, and cosmic horror. So I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I'm excited for people to see this one because it's completely different from the first one, and it's so bizarre and weird and fun and
Well,
adventurous.
I haven't even told my kids about it because they loved the first book, and it's gonna be like a great surprise when that thing shows up and they're able to read the second book. They both blasted through it, the first one in like 15 minutes each. It was great.
Yeah,
It's great.
I think they'll like it. It's yeah, I'm very happy with that book, and it's funny that we get to talk about it this week because it is such a vampire story. That wasn't
Oh, I
even
mean,
planned. That wasn't
That's
even
funny.
planned.
I didn't even know it was a vampire story. I brought it up. So nice.
What I'm hearing is that I need to buy this for the Shafter library. So I will be
Yes.
purchasing both of them because middle grade comics are what everyone wants to read.
Yes, it's we're really proud of it. And that Kat Ferris, who is the illustrator, she just does so many fun things. The characters are so charming for a ghoul, you know, creatures who
Right.
feast on the dead. They're so cute, and
They're adorable for
yeah.
being. I mean, that's the thing is, you know that they eat human flesh or whatever. But my 6-year-old was just like, oh my gosh, Lavinia, she's amazing. Look at how cute she. You know, she's got this stringy hair and like pasty, clammy flesh and sunken in eyes.
We never show her eating, thank goodness. I don't think I ever have a picture. I don't think we ever have a panel of her like gnawing on an arm or something. Although when we do a third book, I think now I have to. At some point she's just gonna be eating.
Yeah.
All right, Ariel, you're up. What's your second drink?
Okay, so my second drink is called Vampire Sunrise, and you will know why when you know what's in it. So there's 2 ounces of mezcal because I'm I love smoky alcohol. 4 ounces of fresh squeezed orange juice, and then actually 2 ounces of bitter orange juice or like Seville oranges. I could not find that, so you can do a substitute, which is equal parts lime, grapefruit, orange juice, and white vinegar. So it's supposed to be pretty bitter, like its name. And then because I don't like grenadine, this is like my hipster workaround, and it's a hibiscus habanero simple syrup. So it's hibiscus habanero, orange peel, and vanilla bean, and it's really good. So it's smoky. It's kind of a dad joke a little bit because the idea is if a vampire were hanging out at the sunrise, they'd.
Right. When you sent over the recipe, I was like, don't you mean vampire sunset?
And I was like, no.
Did you make that syrup yourself?
I did.
Oh wow, very cool.
It was very expensive. Let me tell you, one vanilla bean was $8.
Oh yeah, they're crazy.
So that was wild. Won't be making it, but I have a bunch, so that way I can like make my friends some drinks. Yeah, I made it myself though.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Nice.
It's
So
good.
We're gonna have to get together so that I can get some of that.
Yeah. I can hook you up.
We talked about comics a little bit. Are there other vampire comics that you're into, Cullen?
I liked American Vampire quite a bit. I don't know that I read the entire series, but I dug it. That's Scott Snyder's, and Stephen King wrote at least on the first few issues, and I like that. As far as comics, that's probably the only one that just jumps out. I mean, besides look, I love Tomb of Dracula, the old Marvel Tomb of Dracula series. I don't know why. I don't know why Marvel has such a hard time following that model and recreating Tomb of Dracula, because they could make an amazing comic. In the era of TV shows like Hannibal, how can you not make a Tomb of Dracula comic where Dracula is the star but not the hero, which is exactly what the original series was, and it was awesome. But no, they have to get in and try to yuck, let's make Dracula a joke. And I don't know why they fail so miserably with that character. They could do so many cool things with him. Sorry. But no, I love, the old Tomb of Dracula comic was great. If we talk about when it comes to vampires, I lean more towards books really than comics, prose novels. Salem's Lot, which you mentioned the TV series, but the book was amazing. They Thirst from Robert R. McCammon is one.
I love Robert McCammon.
Oh yeah, he's great. And that book it's sort of a Salem's Lot story if they went after like a big city instead of a small town. What would that look like? And it's a great vampire book. And the Light at the End by John Skipp and Craig Spector, which is just an awesome sort of splatterpunk New York in the 80s vampire story, and it's so good.
Yeah, I mentioned Redneck briefly. I really loved the first arc, and I think the second arc before they left the town that they were in, whatever. When they were just kind of hiding out and drinking antifreeze mixed with blood to get drunk, and the dynamic that they had before it blew into this whole like war against humanity and all these different things, and trying to tie in too much of Vlad the Impaler and just all these different vampires through history and stuff. Like when they were just hillbillies hanging out in a little town kind of under the radar, that was like some of the best vampire stuff that I've read. Because vampires, if vampires ever existed, they still exist, but where do they exist and how do they exist is kind of a theme that Donny Cates explored in the first couple of arcs. That was just like, well, of course they'd be in some little hillbilly town running moonshine or running a barbecue shop or something like that. Just trying to stay off the radar, and having a barbecue shop in a small Texas town or whatever, so much blood at their disposal. Like it was such a great concept. And then when it blew up into like they're moving out into the world and they're doing different things or whatever, it kind of lost me.
Vampires are tough, man. It's a tough genre to really pull off. I think vampire comics are hard to pull off.
Yeah.
I've tried a few times, and I think I did a book called Blood Feud, which was based on a novella I wrote, which was a vampires in the Ozarks, and I did one called The Brothers Dracul, which is about Vlad, Vlad and Radu as vampire hunters when they were teenage boys.
Oh my god, that sounds fun.
And that's I was happier with Brothers. I was happy with the novella of Blood Feud. Is one of my favorite things I've written. The comic, I like it, but it's not one of my favorite comics. Brothers Dracul, I loved, but the problem with it is I want to do it. I intended it to be a much bigger story, and we've never been able to get back to it.
Who was the artist on that one? Because I remember the art on Brothers Dracul was really striking.
That is by Mirko Kolak, who has worked with me on a number of projects.
Third drink.
The third drink that I made is I'm really proud of the name of this one. I made a drink called the One Thing About Living in Santa Clara That I Never Could Stomach, and it's a tribute to Grandpa from Lost Boys. and because in Lost Boys, he has a shelf on his fridge that he's like, never touch my shelf, which is where I keep my my root beers and my Oreos.
Well, that dude was all about rules, though. It was never take the car, never touch my
Yeah,
shelf, never
he
come
had a
through
lot
this
of rules.
door. Yeah.
Yeah. But his root beers and Oreos always stuck with me. So this drink, and this one usually has whipped cream on the top, but whipped cream was too much for me. It's definitely more of a dessert drink.
The cookies are missing too.
Yeah, because again, it's too much for me. The picture has everything put together. I made that drink this morning, or this early afternoon, and then I made this one again right before the call. But yeah, it's root beer, a little bit of Screwball whiskey, which I've come to really love in the last few weeks. I love that Screwball whiskey because it gives it that cool peanut butter taste. And then Irish cream. And again, this is a drink that looks a lot cooler when you first make it because the cream kind of dribbles down into it and it makes these cool little patterns. Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, usually I would top it with whipped cream and sprinkle some crushed Oreo on top of it. And it's great. It's a good dessert drink.
Sounds good.
It does. I mean, it does sound good in spite of the peanut butter whiskey, which I just...
Man, it is so good. It's so good.
I might make that one because somebody bought me one of the Costco bottles. They know I like whiskey, so they bought me the Costco bottle. And it's like, well, I like whiskey, but not novelty whiskey. Like, don't bring me cotton candy whiskey because I won't drink it.
I feel
so it's in there.
I feel that Screwball transcends novelty.
Does it?
It does.
I've heard good things about peanut butter whiskey. I actually have not tried it myself, but
we have a mutual Patrick I know likes the Screwball.
Yes, Pat is the one that I'm thinking of particularly. Yeah,
mm-hmm. Right, because I know he did a big deal about like how great it was, and somebody bought it for me and they brought it over, and I don't think I've ever even opened it because it just, I don't know, it seems like it would be like circus peanuts in a bottle or something. Like I'm not there.
I don't know. I love peanut butter, so it's hard for me to see it going wrong. But
okay, you love peanut butter, but do you love circus peanuts? Because that's what all like peanut butter flavored stuff ends up tasting like for me.
What are you talking about? Do you have some sort of genetic flaw that causes peanut butter to taste like circus peanuts?
You have some deep trauma around circus peanuts that we need to unpack.
That is,
there is a story behind the circus peanuts thing, but again, that's not for here.
Wow. Okay. So many R-rated things we have to talk about behind the scenes. All right.
Wow.
So my second drink today is Glendronic Parliament 21. This stuff is amazing. It's my favorite whiskey of all time now.
Well, tell us how it's vampire related. I want to hear the story.
This is holy whiskey.
Okay.
It's been blessed by a priest.
Amazing.
Try again.
I like whiskey. No, I don't have water in my house. You guys know
you crossed oceans of time to drink these.
Yes. Yes, there it is. The whiskey has crossed oceans of time in order to be here in my yes.
Perfect.
There's no water in my house. Cut me a break, huh? Did I talk about this?
What is
this?
This
is Hoff and Pepper, the same company. Oh, it's backwards, right? Hoff and Pepper, the same company that makes that other the wake up call sauce that had the Bloody Mary sauce on it. Mm-hmm. For the 5-year anniversary of one of their signature sauces called Smoke and Ghost, they came out with a comic.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's this really cool little like mini comic book that if you go on their website on Hoff and Pepper, I don't know, is it hoffandpepper.com? It probably is. Hoff and Pepper spelled out.com. They still have some of these left. It's a limited edition comic book that's the origin story of the Smoke and Ghost.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it is. And, for people who don't make comics to make comics and have the comics like be good, it's a really decent little comic book here. So I love their sauces. And it was a really cool opportunity to kind of write up some articles about this company because they're also a family-oriented, family-run business in Tennessee that does all these custom sauces and stuff. And so they kind of crossed over into comics with this one thing. And hopefully they make some comics in the future too, because they're fun. It's a fun little box to get. And you see that, it comes in this gift box that my kids love, like hiding treasures. And I had to hunt all over the house to find the box to take it back, to put the stuff back in so I could talk about it.
You took your kid's treasure box.
I'm going to put it back.
You monster. You monster. No, I do like that like they did that comic, and I've noticed a bunch of beer companies have started doing like comics on the cans and things like
Mhm.
that. I'm working with some people to do something similar in the near future, but I love that there is this cross pollination starting to happen in comics and booze and hot sauce.
Huh. That's interesting.
You know, the booze and comics connection was the hardest one for me to sell. Did you notice that I got press passes to Innings Festival coming up next month? So I had to convince not only like the people above me in the Comic Con chain that baseball and music belong on a comics and pop culture website, but I also had to convince the people who are running Innings Festival that you nerd out to baseball, you nerd out to music, you nerd out to comics, you nerd out to movies, you nerd out to whatever. Like let's just all be nerds together. Like let's do this nerdy thing. You guys are basically a baseball nerd and music convention, and we cover conventions. And they were like, oh, okay, we'll buy that. And they sent me a press pass. So I'm excited about that for next month.
Awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Look, everybody's a nerd about something.
Yeah. And you find the people that nerd out to the same stuff that you nerd out to, and you've got friends. That's how that works.
That's it. That's the internet.
Or bitter enemies.
You know
Dun
what?
dun dun. Okay.
All right. I think that's about the time that we have for today. Thank you, Ariel. Again, one half of the Not Your Final Girl podcast that we feature every other week on comiccon.com. Thank you for coming out. Appreciate your input today. Next time, we're going to be hanging out with Matt Elfring from Wrestle Buddies podcast, and we're going to do some wrestling superhero kind of based cocktails and talk about like the connections there, because professional wrestlers, they're all just like beefy superheroes, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
Thanks for backing me up on that, Cullen. I appreciate
No,
it.
I agree with you. I was just I've interrupted you so many times today. I didn't want to do it again.
I was actually asking for a response right there. That wasn't actually an interruption, but cool. All right,
No,
so that's it.
No, never mind.
I'm Brendan Allen. That's Cullen Bunn. Sitting here with us is Ariel Dyer. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.